Before we dive into the story, leave a comment letting us know which city you're watching from. Enjoy the story. Everyone, Edward Fisher walked into the hotel's luxury suite like he was inspecting a minefield. His eyes scanned every corner of the room with surgical precision until he saw it dust. His eyes widened, his body froze, his lungs almost refused to breathe. "This is an outrage," Edward muttered, horrified. Without wasting any time, he grabbed the phone and growled at the manager. "My room looks like a deserted wasteland. I demand action." On the other end, someone choked in pure desperation. Did we make a mistake, Mr. Fisher?" "Mistake? I saw dust." A muffled scream came from the other line. In less than 10 minutes, a hotel-wide earthquake had been set off, resulting in the immediate summon of an employee to save the day. That's how Olivia Montero, armed with a mop, a rag, and a less than enthusiastic expression, was thrown into the lion's den, literally. Because Edward Fisher wasn't human. He was a marble sculpture, an iceberg disguised as a man, a boss from nightmares dressed in a designer suit. And Olivia just wanted to make it out of there alive. "Excuse me, sir, I'm here to clean." She stopped mid-sentence when she looked at him. My God, what a man. How unfair. How could someone be so handsome and so grumpy at the same time? Edward looked at her as though she were a mysterious amoeba. "You have 5 minutes. Don't mess this up. 5 minutes? 5 minutes." What did he want from her? To use magic to clean the room? Holding back the urge to throw the mop at him, Olivia got to work. She cleaned with the skill of a ninja, every movement precise and calculated. Everything was going well, until disaster struck. As she stretched to reach a corner of the table, her arm brushed against Edward's. Dramatic pause, Edward froze. The air in the room disappeared. Olivia blinked. "Oops, sorry." But Edward didn't respond. He stared at his own arm as if he had been struck by lightning. "You touched me, yes?" Olivia furrowed her brow. "You touched me," Edward repeated, panicking. "Do you know what that means? Should I get you some hand sanitizer? I'm allergic to women." Olivia's eyes went wide. "What? Allergic?" "I have a rare condition. Every time a woman touches me, I break out in rashes and my body collapses." Olivia bit her lip. "So should I call an ambulance? Or an exorcist?" Edward was breathing heavily, waiting for the first deadly symptoms to appear: redness, shortness of breath, cinematic convulsions, but nothing happened. He looked at his own arm. Nothing. No reaction. Not even an itch. This doesn't make sense," he murmured, shocked. Olivia tried to hold back her laughter. "Wow, am I like an antidote to your problem?" "Don't joke about this," Edward growled. "Sorry, but how do you survive? If a flight attendant touches you, do you explode? If an old lady holds your hand, do you pass out?" Edward clenched his jaw. "Usually, yes. But you," he pointed at her. "Suspicious. You touched me, and nothing happened." Olivia sighed dramatically. "That must mean I'm your soulmate." Edward completely ignored her. He needed answers. This was science, biology, an unexplained phenomenon. So he made a drastic decision. "You're going to work for me." Olivia blinked. "What?" "You're my personal employee now. I'm going to study this phenomenon." She looked at him as if he just asked her to wash a pet dragon. "Hold on, handsome. So you think you can just hire me?" "Yes." "But who gave you that right?" "My money." Olivia took a deep breath to keep herself from freaking out. "Oh right, I forgot that billionaires think they can buy anything. Correction, they can." "Are you kidding me?" "I'm not a lab experiment," Edward shrugged. "Now you are." Olivia crossed her arms, exasperated. "And what if I don't accept? I'll double your salary. I'll triple it. I'll offer lifetime health insurance and a 6-figure annual bonus. Where do I sign?" Edward smiled, satisfied, but Olivia pointed her finger at him. "But I'm not a trained puppy." "No, because puppies at least obey." Olivia's eyes went wide, offended. "You're a terrible human being. And you're hired." She held her forehead, exhausted. Olivia couldn't believe what was happening. She'd walked into that room to clean some lousy dust. And now, in some absurd way, she was being hired by the most unbearable billionaire on the planet. "This can't be real," she murmured, running her hands over her face. Edward, as always, kept his impassive expression. "Believe me, it's very real. You can't just hire me out of nowhere," Olivia exclaimed, throwing her arms up. "I'm not a fast food burger for you to order and take home." "I know. Burgers are much easier to deal with." Olivia opened her mouth, too offended to find words. Listen here, you suited-up robot. Edward raised a hand to stop her. Before you continue with this speech, just accept this. You've got a new job. Congratulations. But I didn't ask for a job, and I didn't ask to be allergic to women, but look where we are. Olivia narrowed her eyes. You might be allergic to decency too, because it's hard to find any in you. Edward ignored the comment. Your contract starts now. From today on, you'll work exclusively for me. And if I don't want to, I'll offer a severance bonus. And if I still don't want to, health insurance with dental included. She raised an eyebrow. With free teeth whitening? Yes. And paid massages. Do you want me to work or open a spa? She huffed. Fine, I'll accept, but only because I like white teeth. Edward smiled triumphantly. Great choice. But before he could celebrate for too long, but there's one condition. Olivia pointed a finger at him. Oh please, now you want to negotiate? Yes. She crossed her arms. If I'm going to be your personal assistant, you have to be a decent human being. No freakouts, no shouting, and for the love of God, no more panic just because I accidentally touched you. Edward raised an eyebrow. You do realize this is a medical issue, right? Yes, and I also realize you need to relax. Relax? He made a face. I'm a billionaire. I don't relax. And I'm a cleaner who can't stand drama, so we're even. Edward studied her for a long moment. All right, deal. Great, now leave. She blinked. What? The workday's over. You can go home. She huffed, grabbed her cleaning bucket, and walked to the door. Before leaving, she gave him one last look. Congratulations, boss. You just hired the only person on the planet who can't stand you. Edward shrugged. As long as you don't kill me during the workday, we're fine. And that's how Olivia Montero, the cleaner who just wanted a peaceful shift, became the personal assistant to the most neurotic man on earth. She just had no idea what was coming next. Mr. Fisher, your coffee is ready. And the next day, she would throw cold coffee on his head. Olivia's first day at work, and with one glorious realization, she wasn't ready to deal with Edward Fisher. And to be fair, Edward wasn't ready to deal with Olivia either. What are you doing? Edward growled as he looked at the coffee on his desk, serving coffee like any assistant would. Olivia crossed her arms, proud of her perfect service. You served cold coffee. She frowned and looked at the cup as if she had committed a crime. Oh, right. And that's it? Do you want a formal apology or a notarized certificate? Edward massaged his temples, breathing deeply as if trying not to throw her out the window. My patience has limits. Great, because I don't have patience for fuss either. He stared at Olivia with a sharp look. Listen here, I'm a billionaire, the owner of an empire, and I demand my coffee to be hot. Not lukewarm, not cold, but hot. And I'm a former cleaner who takes crap to pay the bills, and I demand respect. Edward narrowed his eyes. Respect is earned. Oh, so your hot coffee should be earned too, right? She grabbed the cup and poured the coffee down the drain. There. Now go make it worth it. Silence. Edward was so shocked he didn't know whether to yell or laugh. You threw my coffee away. Yep, then I'd do it again. He crossed his arms, staring at her like a calculating boss eyeing a rebellious employee. Have you ever been fired before? No, but it looks like you've had a few assistants quit on you, haven't you? That's not relevant. Oh, it is. You know what I realized? Olivia put her hands on her hips. You don't need an assistant. You need a babysitter. Edward opened his mouth. A babysitter. I'm a CEO. A CEO who flipped out because his coffee was cold. If that's not a spoiled child, I don't know what is. He clenched his jaw. Make another coffee. You make it. You work for me, but I'm not your barista. He took a deep breath like he was counting to 10 in his head. If I ask for hot coffee, I expect hot coffee. And if I ask for a billionaire with a little humility, I expect, well, I'll be sitting and waiting. Edward rubbed his face, exasperated. You like to annoy me, don't you? It's my favorite sport. He narrowed his eyes. You know what I think? I think you're testing my limits. And you know what I think? I think you're used to being flattered. They stared at each other like two gunslingers about to duel. Then suddenly, Edward laughed, not a fake or sarcastic laugh, but a genuine one, almost surprised. You're unbearable. You are too. They looked at each other for a moment, and as strange as it was, Olivia realized Edward wasn't so angry anymore. He seemed intrigued. Make another coffee. No, please. She smiled, victorious. Aha! You said please. Edward rolled his eyes. If I say thank you, will you make the coffee? Maybe. Great. Thank you. Now make the coffee. She huffed, but grabbed the coffee maker and made another one. But before handing him the cup, she took a sip. Edward narrowed his eyes. Are you checking if it's hot? No, I'm getting my revenge because you're annoying. He sighed and took the cup from her hand. He took a sip, and finally, for the first time that day, Edward Fisher relaxed. See? I'm good at what I do. He raised an eyebrow. Don't overdo it. She smiled. And that's how, in the most bizarre way, the two of them started to understand each other, even if Edward still wouldn't admit it. Working for Edward Fisher was like walking through a minefield. One wrong step could result in an explosion of irritation. And Olivia was about to step on the biggest bomb of all. The morning started relatively calm, or at least as calm as it could get with a grumpy boss and a rebellious assistant. After serving coffee hot this time because she still needed the job, Olivia thought she'd have a brief moment of peace. She was wrong. Let's go out, Edward announced without any context. Go out. Like outside? She furrowed her brow. No, I'm inviting you for an astral trip. He rolled his eyes. Of course it's outdoors. We have a meeting. You're coming with me. And why exactly do I need to go? Because you work for me. She opened her mouth, then closed it. He had a point, an annoying point, but still a point. Fine. But I hope this meeting has food. This is an office, not a buffet. Then I guess I'd rather get fired. Get in the car, she muttered, but followed her boss to the garage where a shiny black car was waiting for them. As soon as they got in, Edward grabbed his phone, and Olivia realized the driver wasn't who she expected. Wait, you drive? How observant. But aren't you rich? Rich people usually have a driver, and poor people usually don't argue with the ones who sign their paychecks. She huffed and buckled her seatbelt. All right, Mr. Autopilot, but drive carefully, okay? I've seen billionaires crash Bugattis like they were bicycles. Edward didn't even look at her. You talk too much. After a quiet drive, because Edward finally realized arguing with Olivia was a lost cause, they arrived at the Fisher Enterprises building. As they entered the lobby, Edward was immediately met with curious stares, and Olivia noticed. Why are people looking at you like that? Because I'm important, or because they expect you to explode into an allergy attack any second? He shot her a warning look. Stop talking about it. But seriously, have you realized I'm like a walking miracle in your life? He let out a heavy sigh and pressed the elevator button. If I compliment you, will you stop talking? Maybe. Depends on the compliment. He squinted at her, but before he could say anything, the elevator doors opened, and they both stepped inside. That's when the universe decided to have some fun. Halfway up, the elevator stopped, the lights flickered, and then absolute silence. What was that? Olivia asked, looking around. The elevator stopped. Really? I thought we were just taking a dramatic pause. Edward pressed the emergency button, but nothing happened. He frowned. This is ridiculous. Well, at least we have each other for company. I'd rather die. Olivia rolled her eyes. Wow, thanks for the warm welcome. She leaned against the wall and crossed her arms. You know what? This might be our chance to have a civilized conversation. Edward let out an ironic laugh. This is a broken elevator, not a therapy session. Oh, come on, Fisher. You can't be in a bad mood 100% of the time. Try me. Olivia shook her head. You know what I think? You're not actually a bad person. You just don't know how to deal with normal people. He raised an eyebrow. And you consider yourself normal? Compared to you, I'm practically a saint. Edward sighed and leaned against the opposite wall. If you want to talk so much, then tell me, why did you take this job? She bit her lip, thinking, because I needed the money. And now? Do you still need it? She looked him straight in the eye. Now? Now I think I'm here for fun. He narrowed his eyes. Why the hell would working for me be fun? Because you freak out over ridiculous things, and that amuses me. I don't freak out. You had a meltdown because your coffee was cold. That's a basic right. She laughed, and then the lights came back on. The elevator moved, and Edward Fisher knew at that moment that his new assistant was a problem he had no intention of solving. The elevator finally reached the right floor, and Edward Fisher stepped out like he had just escaped from a maximum security prison. Olivia, on the other hand, skipped out like she had just won the lottery. I think we had a little emotional bonding moment in there, boss. If you ever call it emotional bonding again, I'll cut your salary. She laughed. Wow, threats. Like I haven't heard that before. Edward rolled his eyes and walked to his office, ignoring the surprised stares of the employees. It was obvious they were shocked to see him accompanied by a woman and not covered in allergies. But before he could completely ignore it, Olivia decided to make his life even more complicated. "Good morning, everyone," she waved to the team at Fisher Enterprises. Dead silence. The employees held their breath, looking from Olivia to Edward like they were seeing a tiger and a rabbit sharing the same space. Edward clenched his teeth. "Don't interact with the staff." "I'm a staff member, boss." "Then don't interact with the other staff." "Wow, the work environment here is so welcoming." He ignored her and walked into the office, already preparing for an extra dose of patience. "Let's have some fun with those who only read the comments. Type hamburger in the comments. Only those who made it this far will understand. Now let's get back to the story." Olivia entered right behind him, uninvited, and threw herself into one of the chairs like she was at home. "Okay, what's my first mission? Be quiet." "I'm not sure I can do that." Edward massaged his temples. "Then start by bringing coffee." She jumped up immediately. "Great. With sugar? No sugar? Almond milk? Foam? Want me to draw a heart in the foam?" He just looked at her. "Coffee. Black. Simple." So boring. "It's a drink, not a circus show." Olivia grumbled and left, returning 5 minutes later, holding a steaming cup of coffee. "Here you go, Your Excellency." Edward took the cup and took a sip, then immediately spat it back out. "What is this?" "Coffee." Olivia blinked innocently. "Does this have cinnamon?" "Yep. I thought a special touch would give it a, I don't know, more sophisticated flavor." "I hate cinnamon." "Well, now you know you can trust me to test your limits." He closed his eyes and took a deep breath. "Try again. No tricks." What a boring boss." When Olivia came back from her second attempt, Edward took the coffee, sniffed it, and then took a sip. "Now that's better." But before he could enjoy his piece, Olivia was already slouched in the chair, staring at him as if she were studying a rare specimen. He gave her a suspicious look. "What is it now?" "I'm just reflecting on my life. How do I go from being a humble cleaning lady to the personal assistant of a dramatic billionaire?" Edward raised an eyebrow. "Dramatic? You had a meltdown over cinnamon, Edward." He narrowed his eyes. "If you keep calling me by my first name, I'll start deducting from your salary." Wow, what a horrible threat. Edward knew this woman was a problem the moment she walked into his life. But the worst part? He wasn't totally bothered by it. An hour later, Edward and Olivia were sitting in the meeting room, surrounded by the executives of Fisher Enterprises. Everything was going fine until Edward turned to Olivia. "Grab my notebook folder." She blinked. "You have a notebook folder?" "Yes, and I need it now." "Right. And where's this folder?" He made a face of pure disgust. "On my desk." "Oh, and where is your desk?" The executives around them fell into absolute silence. Edward held his breath. "You spent the whole morning in my office and don't know where my desk is?" "Oh, I know." Olivia raised her finger. "But I thought it was just for decoration." He gritted his teeth. "Just get the folder." Olivia ran out of the room and came back 2 minutes later, triumphant. "Here you go, boss." He grabbed the folder and opened it. Then he stopped. Then he stared at Olivia. Then he abruptly ended the meeting. When the executives left, he stood there holding the folder open. "Olivia?" "Yes, boss?" He turned the folder to her. "What is this?" Inside the folder, instead of important documents, there was a half-eaten sandwich and a pack of gummy bears. She blinked. "Oh, it's my lunch." Silence. "You kept food inside my notebook folder?" "Well, I was going to eat later, but when I saw the empty folder, I thought it would be a good place to store it." He squinted his eyes. "You kept food inside my folder?" "Yes, but look on the bright side, now it smells like ham and cheese." Edward stood up and walked to the window. For a brief moment, Olivia thought he was going to jump. Then he just took a deep breath. "I don't know whether to fire you or give you a raise." "I'll take the raise." He slowly turned around. "I think you need intensive training." "Oh no, oh yes." And at that moment, Olivia realized her job was about to get even more chaotic. Olivia was already used to Edward Fisher's eccentricities. After all, her new boss was the kind of man who would lose it over dust and treated any human touch like a biological attack. But she wasn't prepared for what he called intensive training for personal assistants. "From now on, you'll undergo training to become a worthy assistant," Edward said, arms crossed. Olivia raised an eyebrow. "Training? What do I need to learn? Making coffee with gold? Choosing the suit that matches your mood for the day?" Edward ignored the sarcasm and pulled a huge binder out of a drawer. "This is the Edward Fisher Operations Manual." She blinked, incredulous. "Is this a manual or an encyclopedia of your ego?" He opened to the first page. Rule number 1, absolute punctuality. "I've never been late. Today you arrived 32 seconds after me. That doesn't even count." "It does count." Rule number 2, never touch me without permission. She sighed. Yes, I get it. You react to touches like a scared cat." He ignored her comment. Rule number 3, my routine must be followed to the letter. "Okay, here we go." "What does that mean?" "I wake up at 5:30 a.m. Coffee must be ready by 5:45. At 6:00 a.m. we review my schedule. At 7:00 a.m. physical training." Her eyes went wide. "That's not a routine, it's a military regime." He closed the binder and crossed his arms. "Welcome to your new job." The next morning at 6:05 a.m., Olivia was sitting on a bench at Edward's private gym, holding a cup of coffee and watching her boss lift weights like he was training for the Olympics. "Seriously, are you a CEO or a Roman gladiator?" He didn't answer. She took a sip of her coffee. "Is this part of my training? Because if it is, I'm doing great just sitting here. You should be writing down my routine." "Oh sure. Let's see. Dumbbells, grumpy face, push-ups, look of disdain." "Noted." Edward stopped the exercise and gave her an impatient look. "Are you really taking notes?" She smiled. "Of course." Mentally, he rolled his eyes and went back to lifting weights. But then a miracle happened. Edward tripped. Olivia choked on her coffee. The CEO, the flawless man, lost his balance trying to grab the water bottle and almost fell to the floor. In reflex, Olivia grabbed his arm. The touch was inevitable. She felt his muscles against her hand and thought, "Wow, this feels like stone." He, on the other hand, froze. His eyes widened, and in the next second, he pulled away as if he'd been burned. "You touched me. Calm down. I just stopped you from falling and smashing your face on the floor." He was breathing deeply, staring at his arm as if it had been hit by acid. What if I have a reaction this time?" She watched him closely. Nothing happened. He looked at his arm. Nothing. No marks, no itching. This doesn't make sense." Olivia smiled. "I think I'm your antidote." He glared at her. "That's not funny." "Of course it is. This needs to be tested." She raised an eyebrow. "Tested? Like how?" "Lab, scientists, and lab coats." He extended his arm. "Touch me." Her eyes widened. "Wait, are you serious? Touch my arm. We need to confirm this." She took a hesitant step and barely touched the tip of her finger to his arm. Nothing. Edward Fisher, the man allergic to women, had no reaction. She smiled. "All right then. I really am your protective charm." He clenched his jaw. "This doesn't make sense." She snapped her fingers. "Or maybe it does. You're falling for me." He blinked, shocked. "What?" "Aha. I've seen this movie. The grumpy CEO can't touch anyone, but then he meets the chaotic assistant, and bam, the allergy is gone." He rolled his eyes. "This has nothing to do with feelings. It's science. Or love." He sighed. "Let's work." But as they headed back to the office, Edward couldn't shake an annoying thought. What if she was right? 2 hours later, Edward Fisher was trying to get some work done, but Olivia wasn't helping. "Hey, this report looks like some medieval spell." He looked up. "You can read, right?" "Read?" "Yes." "Read this thing?" "No." He sighed. "This is about the company merger." She shook her head. "Okay then. Blah, blah, blah. Money, money, money. Summary done." He shot her a bored look. "That's not a valid summary." She gave him a thumbs up. "But it sums it up pretty well." Before he could respond, the phone rang. He answered. "Yes?" The company's assistant replied, "Mr. Fisher, the business dinner is confirmed for tonight." He clenched his teeth. "Great." He then looked at Olivia. "You're coming with me." She blinked. "What?" "I need an assistant. A business dinner." "I don't even know which fork to use." He smiled, then learned quickly. Her eyes widened, but Edward had already decided, and Olivia knew that once he decided something, there was no way out. Hours later, Olivia was sitting in a luxury car, rethinking all of her life choices. "I knew working for a billionaire would bring problems, but I didn't think I'd have to fake fancy etiquette." Edward, driving, sighed. "You just need to sit there and not spill anything. Is that too much to ask?" He rolled his eyes. She looked at him and laughed. If it's any consolation, you look really good." He frowned. "It's a business dinner, not a runway show." She smiled. "Have you always been this charming, or is it practice?" He huffed. "I have a feeling this dinner is going to be a disaster." And he was right, because at that dinner, Olivia was going to accidentally cause the biggest mess in the company's history. The five-star restaurant had a golden glow, with chandeliers hanging from the ceiling and waiters gliding through the room like train dancers. Everything in the space screamed luxury and sophistication, which meant that Olivia Montero felt completely out of place. She adjusted the dress Edward had insisted on sending to her room, with a blunt note, "Wear this. Don't embarrass me." First, who did he think he was giving orders like that? Second, did he really think a silk dress would fix her clumsy nature? He needed to rethink his approach. When Edward stopped the car at the restaurant entrance and got out, Olivia noticed how much attention he had attracted. Men in impeccable suits usually did that, but Edward Fisher had an even more intimidating presence. She got out of the car trying to look sophisticated, but tripped on her heel and almost fell right onto the red carpet. Edward grabbed her arm at the last second and shot her an impatient look. "Can you please walk without challenging the laws of gravity? If these shoes weren't designed for torture, I'd be walking." "Just fine, thank you." He sighed and led her inside, completely ignoring the people around who were trying to greet him. In the main dining area, a table was reserved for them. There were two important businessmen sitting there, along with a blonde woman who looked like she'd stepped out of a fashion magazine. Edward pulled out a chair for Olivia, which caught her completely off guard. "Wow, what a gentleman," she whispered. "Don't get used to it," he replied. The businessmen started the conversation, talking about numbers, mergers, and financial projections topics that made Olivia wish she were anywhere else. She tried to keep a serious and attentive expression, but at one point she caught herself staring at the silverware. Salad fork, dinner fork, soup spoon, fish knife. But where was the survival fork? When the dishes started arriving, Olivia panicked. First came a strange soup that looked more like a puddle of expensive paint than actual food. She picked up the wrong spoon, realized it too late, and tried to cover it up. Edward, without even looking at her, murmured, "That's not the right spoon." "Do you have eyes in the back of your head?" "No, I just know. You're the type who does everything wrong." She grimaced but quickly switched spoons. The dinner continued, and Olivia tried to stay quiet. Then one of the businessmen looked at her and asked, "Miss Montero, what's it like working directly with Mr. Fisher?" The elegant blonde at the table, who Olivia finally realized must be some ex-girlfriend of Edward, raised an eyebrow, waiting for the answer. Olivia smiled. "Oh, it's a dream." Edward stopped drinking his wine and shot her a danger look. "I mean, if your dream is being interrogated all the time, getting judgmental looks, and dealing with a boss who has a heart made of stone." Edward clenched his jaw. The blonde let out a quiet laugh. "That sounds pretty realistic." The businessmen also laughed, clearly enjoying themselves. But Edward, not amused, grabbed his wine glass and took a long sip before leaning toward her. "Remind me to review your contract when we get back." She smiled. "Remind me to run away before that." For a moment, his eyes showed a flicker of amusement, but he quickly returned to his serious tone. The waiter brought a new dish, and Olivia finally felt like she could relax until she accidentally spilled some sauce on the perfectly white tablecloth. A deadly silence fell over the group. The businessmen stared. Edward's ex looked at her. The waiter froze mid-step, and Edward, of course, widened his eyes as if she'd just destroyed a rare artifact. I can't explain." "No, you can't. It was just an accident. You're a walking disaster." She grabbed a napkin to clean the sauce, but in the process, she knocked over one of the businessman's wine glasses, which tipped over and spilled right onto his suit. The businessman gasped. Edward closed his eyes as if asking the gods for patience. Olivia froze. "Okay, now I really think I should run for my life." Edward's ex laughed openly. "She's a real gem, Edward. You finally found someone who matches your chaos." Edward, out of patience, threw the napkin onto the table and stood up. "Let's go, now." Olivia followed him, practically running to get out of the restaurant before someone tossed her into a shark-infested lake. Once inside the car, Edward took a deep breath, clearly trying to calm down. "I can't believe you did that." "Okay, let's look at the bright side. No one died, but my reputation did." "Oh, please. You're still the most respected, insufferable billionaire in the country." He rubbed his temples. "I really should reconsider this idea of you being my assistant." she smiled. "But then you'd lose the magic touch that only I have." He shot her a sideways glance, still clearly annoyed but unable to argue. When they arrived at the company building, Edward parked and sat silently for a moment. "You need to be more careful, and you need to relax," he sighed. "I don't relax. Maybe that's the problem." She got out of the car before he could respond, leaving Edward Fisher with a new annoying thought. Why, despite everything, had he enjoyed that night more than any business dinner in the past few years? And worse, why couldn't he stop looking at her? Edward Fisher wasn't a man who handled mistakes well. In fact, he didn't tolerate them at all. But somehow, ever since Olivia Montero entered his life, mistakes seemed to follow him like a curse. After the disaster at the business dinner, he couldn't stop thinking about how disastrous, reckless, and annoyingly unpredictable she was. Still, for reasons he didn't want to admit, firing her no longer seemed like a viable option, and that bothered him deeply. The next morning, he arrived at the office, ready to reconsider his decision to keep her around. However, before he could even settle into his chair, the door was slammed open. "Good morning, boss?" Edward closed his eyes for a second, trying to maintain his composure. "Don't call me boss, but you are my boss, a mistake I can still fix." Olivia flashed an unabashed smile and placed a cup of coffee on his desk. "I brought coffee." Edward looked at her suspiciously. "Does this have poison in it? If I wanted to kill you, I'd do something more creative." He hesitated, picked up the cup, and took a sip. The next moment, he made a disgusted face. "What the hell is this?" "Coffee with milk and sugar." He set the cup far from him. "I drink black coffee. You need to relax a little. What I need is for you to stop acting like this is an amusement park. Oh, please." She rolled her eyes and flopped into the chair across from him. "Come on, boss. What's the mission of the day? First, never say bosses again. Second, your mission is to leave me alone. Impossible. It's part of my contract to torment you every day." Edward sighed, exhausted. "So, since you want a job so badly, today you're coming with me to an important event." She blinked, surprised. "Wait, important event? Like cocktail with rich people or boring conference where I'm going to sleep in the middle?" "Neither." "A charity auction. Oh, cool. Free food and champagne." "You're not going for the food. You're going to observe and learn." I doubt it. I always find a way to get free food." Edward rubbed his temples. "Why am I still insisting on this?" "Because I'm irresistible." He completely ignored her. "Just wear something decent." "I have decent clothes, okay?" He raised an eyebrow, doubtful. "I'll provide something appropriate." "Oh, here you go again, trying to dress me up like a doll. If it were up to you, you'd show up dressed like a janitor." "My uniform is very dignified. Thank you." Edward sighed again and got up, grabbing his phone. "Be ready by 7 tonight. Don't be late." "If I'm late, are you going to fire me?" "No, I'll leave you on the street." She smiled. "Can't wait." When the evening arrived, Olivia stood in front of the mirror, analyzing the dress Edward had sent her. It was an elegant, sophisticated style, and clearly way too expensive for someone who, until a few days ago, was scrubbing toilets. She spun around a bit, admiring the fabric. "Okay, I'll admit it. He has good taste." The problem was the heels. If she wore them for more than 2 hours, she'd probably break an ankle. Soon, the sound of a horn echoed in front of the hotel. Here we go. The charity auction was taking place in an incredibly luxurious hall with round tables, a main stage, and a parade of socialites showing off their jewelry. Olivia felt out of place the moment she stepped in. Edward walked beside her, his posture perfect, greeting acquaintances with subtle nods. She, on the other hand, was just trying not to trip. "Breathe. Don't mess this up," she murmured to herself. Edward glanced at her sideways. "If you manage to get through the night without destroying anything, that will be a win." Wow, such faith in me. I've learned to expect the worst. Before she could respond, a well-dressed man approached Edward. "Good to see you, Mr. Bradford." The man, clearly an important investor, looked at Olivia and smiled politely. "And who is this lovely young lady?" Edward hesitated. "My assistant." Bradford raised an eyebrow. "Just an assistant?" Olivia flashed a wide smile. "Oh, he hired me because I'm the only woman who can touch him without him having a meltdown." The silence was awkward. Bradford blinked a few times, confused. "Excuse me?" Edward closed his eyes, exhausted. "Ignore what she said." "Oh, but it's true," Olivia continued, enjoying the situation. He has this weird allergy. If any woman touches him, he nearly dies. But me? Nothing happens. Bradford looked even more confused. That is fascinating, isn't it? Olivia smiled, almost like a scientific experiment. Edward grabbed her arm and gently pulled her aside. Can you stop talking? Why? I'm helping spread the truth. The only thing you're spreading is embarrassment. Well, you should be grateful. I should send you back to the cleaning department. But then you wouldn't have anyone to touch you, without needing full protective gear. He rolled his eyes. The auction started soon after, and while Edward paid attention to the bids, Olivia tried not to doze off. When a rare diamond necklace was announced, the bidding among the wealthy got intense. Should we bet too? Olivia whispered. No. Just for fun? No. What if I raise the paddle just to see the reaction of people? Edward gave her a deadly stare. If you raise your hand, I swear I'll make you work in the event's kitchen. She laughed. Okay, no bets. By the end of the night, Edward was satisfied with securing an important investment. Olivia, on the other hand, just wanted to take off her shoes. When they got into the car, she sighed dramatically. So, did I do well? You talk too much. Is that a compliment? No, she smiled. But I bet you had fun. He didn't answer. For some reason, he couldn't deny it. Edward Fisher didn't have much patience for social events. In fact, he considered them a waste of time, a ridiculous show where millionaires competed to see who had more influence and power. But that night, something unexpected happened. Sitting at the table with a glass of wine in his hand, he watched Olivia Montero balance on her heels as if she were in an Olympic survival competition. She was determined to look sophisticated, but he knew it was only a matter of time before something went wrong. You're awfully quiet, Olivia murmured beside him, and you're talking too much. She rolled her eyes and grabbed one of the champagne glasses on the table. You should learn to relax. And you should learn not to embarrass your boss at public events. Hey, I've been a picture of class and elegance all night long. If by class and elegance you mean almost knocking over a tray of appetizers, then yes, you were flawless. She flashed him a cheeky smile. You have to admit you had a little fun tonight. Edward didn't answer. Instead, he focused his attention on the main stage, where the master of ceremonies was announcing a special auction. Ladies and gentlemen, we've now reached one of the most anticipated items of the evening, a private dinner with Mr. Edward Fisher. Olivia nearly choked on her champagne. What did he say? Edward froze. He didn't remember agreeing to this. What the hell is going on? Olivia struggled to keep from laughing as the host continued to hype up the benefits of a private dinner with one of the country's most influential billionaires. Don't worry, Edward, she teased. I'm sure many rich ladies will pay a fortune just to see you up close. He shot her a deadly look, but before he could respond, the first bid was made. $10,000, $20,000, $50,000. Edward massaged his temples. I'm going to kill whoever organized this. Olivia, on the other hand, was having way too much fun. You're a hit, boss. If you raise that paddle, I'll fire you. Wow, so cruel. But before she could keep teasing, a loud, confident voice echoed across the room. $200,000. The room went silent. Everyone turned to see where the bid came from, and Olivia took a second to process what was happening. The woman who had just placed the bid was none other than Samantha Lear, Edward's ex-girlfriend, and by the look in her eyes, this wasn't just a bid, it was a declaration of war. Edward kept his expression neutral, but Olivia noticed his fingers tighten on the edge of the table. Wow, your ex really wants to buy you. Be quiet. The master of ceremonies, clearly excited by the outrageous bid, slammed the gavel. Sold to Miss Lear. The room erupted in applause and excited whispers. Edward, on the other hand, just wanted to disappear. This is going to be a nightmare. Olivia tried to hold back a laugh. Look on the bright side. At least you're worth $200,000. He completely ignored her. Later that night, when Edward and Olivia returned to the office, he was still in a bad mood. I shouldn't have come. Do you think she planned this? He let out a humorless laugh. Samantha never does anything without a reason. Olivia flopped onto the office sofa, kicking off her shoes like she was getting rid of a medieval torture device. Well, at least I didn't break anything tonight. Edward ran a hand over his face. I shouldn't have let you come along. Are you kidding? This was the best night of my life. You have a twisted sense of humor. She adjusted herself on the sofa and crossed her arms. So, what are you going to do now? He sighed. I'll go through with the dinner and put this to rest once and for all. You look scared. He looked her straight in the eyes. "You don't know Samantha." "Well, now I'm curious like..." Edward ignored the provocation and grabbed the phone. "I need to call my PR team. This is going to be in the papers tomorrow." Olivia watched as he walked around the office, clearly irritated. "Want me to come with you to the dinner?" He stopped. "What?" "If you want, I can go as moral support." Edward blinked, surprised by the offer. "You want to go? I don't miss a good drama." He sighed, shaking his head. "You're impossible, I know." He was silent for a moment before finally saying, "Fine, you're coming with me." Olivia smiled, knowing that decision would lead to many stories. Little did she know what was about to happen. The night of the dinner arrived faster than Olivia expected. Even though she had volunteered to go with Edward, she had no idea what she was about to face. "Are you sure you want to go?" Edward asked as he adjusted his tie in the elevator mirror. "No, but I'm going anyway," she replied, adjusting the dress he had sent to her apartment. Edward looked at her for a moment. "If you cause a disaster, I'll pretend I don't know you." "Fair enough," she shrugged. When they arrived at the restaurant, Olivia shivered seeing the luxurious name at the entrance. It was the kind of place where a single dish cost more than her rent. They were escorted to the reserved table where Samantha Lear was already waiting, flawless as always, with a calculated smile on her lips. "Edward," Samantha said, standing up to greet him with a kiss on the cheek. Edward took a step back, subtly avoiding it. "Samantha," he replied curtly. "And this is?" She looked at Olivia with sharp interest. "Olivia Montero, Edward's personal assistant." Olivia introduced herself before he could say anything. "Assistant?" Samantha raised an eyebrow. "Interesting." "Not really," Edward murmured. The three of them sat down, and while the waiter served the wine, Olivia felt like she was about to witness a silent war. Samantha smiled at Edward and rested her chin on her hand. "I have to admit, I didn't expect you to accept this dinner. I didn't expect to be sold at an auction, so I guess we're even." Olivia stifled a laugh. "You've always been so dramatic," Samantha said. Edward didn't answer. He just grabbed his glass and took a slow sip. The waiter returned with the menus, and Olivia grabbed hers only to widen her eyes when she saw the prices. "Oh my God," she exclaimed. Samantha looked at her with an amused smile. "Is something wrong? You call this a menu? I call it armed robbery." Edward squinted his eyes, clearly regretting bringing her. "Olivia, please." She lowered the menu, but not before whispering, "Are you sure your ex doesn't want to sell me with the dinner? Because with the price of this steak, I think I'm part of the package." Samantha let out a quiet laugh. "She's adorable, Edward. She's unbearable," he corrected. "Thanks," Olivia smiled proudly. The dinner went on relatively smoothly, until Samantha decided to raise the stakes of the conversation. "So, Edward, the first heard you finally found someone who can touch you without causing an allergic reaction." Edward tensed up. "Who told you that?" "Oh, darling, I always know what's going on." Olivia looked at Edward. "Wait, did you tell someone?" "No," Samantha smiled. "Don't look at me like that. I just thought it was interesting." "It's not interesting. It's irrelevant. I disagree. If after years of avoiding human touch, you finally found someone who can stay by your side without needing an ambulance, that's a big deal." Olivia frowned. "That sounds so strange to hear out loud." Samantha took a sip of her wine. "Edward, if I may ask, what makes her so special?" The silence at the table grew heavy. Edward looked away from Olivia, and for a brief moment, he seemed to consider the question. Then he shrugged. "I don't know." Olivia scoffed. "Wow, what an inspiring answer." Samantha laughed. "Still the same Edward. Always so analytical. Always so nosy," he shot back. The tension in the air only grew, and Olivia started to regret agreeing to come. But then, just when everything seemed ready to explode, the disaster struck. The waiter arrived with the dishes, and as he tried to pour the wine, he tripped on the rug, and the bottle flew straight onto Samantha's dress. Time stopped. The entire room stared at the scene, and Samantha jumped to her feet, trying to clean the wine stain off the expensive fabric. "This is ridiculous," she exclaimed. The waiter turned pale. "I am so sorry, miss." Edward sighed, rubbing his face. Of course this had to happen. Olivia looked at him. "Hey, for the first time it wasn't my fault." Samantha was furious, but she tried to keep her composure. "I need a minute." She rushed out, and Olivia looked at Edward. "Was that a sign for us to leave?" "Definitely." They got up quickly, but before they could leave, Samantha came back, still visibly upset. "Edward." He turned to face her. What? She crossed her arms. This isn't over. Edward sighed. Samantha, this has been over for years. She looked at him for a moment and then smiled to herself. We'll see. Without waiting for a response, she walked away, leaving Edward and Olivia exchanging confused looks. That was a little scary, Olivia murmured. Welcome to my world, Edward replied, already heading toward the door. As soon as they got in the car, Olivia sighed. Well, at least no one died. But my patience did. She laughed, leaning back in her seat. So what happens now? Edward was quiet for a moment. Now I figure out how to make this whole mess stop. But he knew that with Olivia around, nothing would ever be that simple. The day after the chaotic dinner, Edward Fisher was more upset than usual. He paced back and forth in his office, mentally going over every detail from the night before. Nothing went as planned, and, worse, now Samantha was interested in the fact that Olivia could touch him. This was a problem he needed to solve before it got any bigger. You're wearing out the office carpet from all that pacing, Olivia commented, leaning against the door, holding a cup of coffee. Edward stopped and shot her a sharp look. You? Me? Yeah, you. She took a sip of her coffee, completely unfazed. Oh, I'm glad you noticed. For a second I thought I was invisible. He ignored the sarcasm and crossed his arms. We need to have a serious talk. Olivia raised an eyebrow. Oh, here comes the lecture. It's not a lecture. It's a proposal. She frowned. I don't accept work proposals from stressed-out billionaires. Edward took a deep breath, trying to keep his patience. Olivia, I need to understand why you can touch me without causing an allergic reaction. Again with this? Yes, and I've decided the best way to get an answer is by doing tests. She narrowed her eyes. Tests sound scary. You're not going to be dissected, if that's what you're thinking. What a relief. But you will have to help me. Olivia crossed her arms. And what do I get out of this? He raised an eyebrow. You want money? I want time off. Edward blinked. What? If I have to be your official guinea pig, I want weekly time off. He looked at her for a moment, then sighed. Deal. Olivia smiled, victorious. Great. So what's the first test? He hesitated for a second before answering. Touch me. She widened her eyes. What? Come on, just touch my arm. Olivia looked at him suspiciously. This sounds like a trick to fire me. Just do it. She rolled her eyes but reached out and gently placed her hand on his arm. Silence. Edward furrowed his brow, waiting to feel any allergic reaction. But like before, nothing happened. No itching, no redness, no symptoms. He pulled his arm back as if trying to process what was happening. Nothing new, right? Olivia asked. Nothing. Okay, so I guess I passed the first test. Can we go have lunch now? He ignored the comment and walked away, deep in thought. We need to test this more times, Olivia sighed. So basically my new job is to be your random touch assistant? If necessary, yes. She laughed, shaking her head. You're unbelievable. You've said that before, and I'll keep saying it. They were both silent for a moment. Then Edward looked at her with a serious expression. If Samantha or anyone else tries to investigate this, you tell me immediately. Olivia raised an eyebrow. What does she want anyway? I don't know, but I don't like how interested she is in this. She shrugged. Well, as long as I don't have to deal with more awkward dinners, I'm in. Edward relaxed a little. Great, now get out of my office. Wow, so polite. Olivia. She laughed and gave an exaggerated wave. Okay, boss. As soon as she left the room, Edward sighed. It still didn't make sense, but he would figure it out, no matter what it took. Hours later, Olivia was in the building's cafeteria when a message came through on her phone. Come to my office now. She furrowed her brow and sighed. Here we go again. When she walked into the room, Edward was standing, holding a piece of paper. What is it now? She asked. We have an event tonight. She blinked. What? A charity gala. You're coming with me. Her eyes widened. Wait, what? You heard me. Oh, no. No way. Edward crossed his arms. You don't have a choice. Of course I do. You don't. She frowned. Why do you need me there? Because Samantha will be there. Oh, so that's it. You want me to go as your human shield. Call it whatever you want. Olivia rubbed her temples. This is a nightmare, and you're going to deal with it. She sighed. And what am I supposed to wear? Edward pulled an envelope from the desk and handed it to her. I've already taken care of that. She opened the envelope and saw an invitation and a card from an expensive dress shop. Is this a bribe? It's an investment so you don't show up looking like a disaster. She made a face. You really need to work on your social skills. And you need to stop arguing. Olivia rolled her eyes. Fine, whatever. I'll go. But if I fall again at the entrance of some fancy place, it's your fault. Edward ignored the comment and went back to work. See you at 8, don't be late. She sighed and left the office. This is corporate kidnapping. But deep down, she knew this wouldn't be just any gala, and she was starting to suspect. Edward Fisher knew that too. The luxury dress shop felt like a different universe. Olivia wasn't the type of person who felt comfortable among racks of clothes that cost the equivalent of her rent for a year. Let's have some fun with those who only read the comments. Type Coca-Cola in the comments. Only those who made it this far will understand. Now let's get back to the story. An elegant saleswoman, who looked like she stepped out of a fashion magazine, looked Olivia up and down, clearly confused about how someone like her had gotten a shopping cart from this store. Miss Montero, Mr. Fisher has picked out a few options for you. Olivia raised an eyebrow. He picked them out? Yes, he made it clear he wanted something sophisticated and appropriate for the gala. She sighed, already imagining a boring, tight dress that she wouldn't even be able to breathe in. The saleswoman brought 3 dresses. The first one was elegant, but too plain. The second looked like something out of a Disney princess movie. The third, Olivia's eyes widened as she saw the black satin dress with a sophisticated cut and sparkling details. Okay, this one's not so bad. It's one of Mr. Fisher's favorites, the saleswoman said. She rolled her eyes. Of course it is. After trying it on and realizing it fit perfectly, Olivia sighed, accepting her fate. Fine, we'll go with this one. Once she was ready, she took a car to the event. The ballroom where the gala was held looked like something out of a movie. Huge chandeliers, people dressed impeccably, and waiters walking by with champagne glasses. She looked around, feeling out of place. I shouldn't be here, she muttered. Before she could even think about turning around and leaving, she felt a presence next to her. You're late, Edward Fisher said, his usual disapproving tone. Olivia turned to face him and almost stopped breathing. He looked flawless, dressed in a perfectly tailored black suit that highlighted his imposing presence. For a moment, she was speechless, but then she snapped out of it. Oh, sorry. I forgot to sign the contract that said I'm your time slave. He raised an eyebrow. You're particularly annoying today. She forced a smile. Thanks. Before Edward could respond, a feminine voice came from behind them. Edward, darling. They both turned at the same time to see Samantha, Edward's ex, smiling with interest. Samantha, Edward replied, his expression neutral. The woman's eyes scanned Olivia from head to toe. You brought company tonight. Olivia felt uncomfortable under the other woman's scrutinizing gaze. Believe me, I didn't want to be here, she murmured. Samantha chuckled lightly. Well, at least you know your place. Olivia's eyes widened. What? Edward interrupted before things got out of hand. Samantha, this is my assistant, Olivia Montero. Assistant? Samantha repeated, visibly surprised. Olivia crossed her arms. Why does everyone seem shocked when they find that out? Because you don't look like an assistant, Samantha replied with a smug smile. Before Olivia could snap back with a sharp retort, Edward lightly touched her arm. Ignore her, he murmured. It was a subtle touch, almost imperceptible, but enough to catch Samantha's attention. The woman narrowed her eyes. So it's true, Edward tensed. What? Samantha smiled. You really can touch her. Silence. Olivia looked at Edward, confused. Is this some sort of contest now? Samantha leaned slightly toward Edward. This is fascinating, darling. I really should look into this more closely. Edward clenched his jaw. Samantha, don't start. The woman smiled, pleased with herself for getting under his skin. I never start anything, Edward. But you know I always finish it. She shot one last look at Olivia before walking away, greeting other guests. What an unbearable woman, Olivia muttered. Edward sighed. I told you this gala wouldn't be easy. She rolled her eyes. It's not hard because of the gala. It's hard because you have a special talent for attracting people who deserve a punch in the face. He let out a tired sigh. Can you please just try to act like a civilized person tonight? And I'm not? No. Well, maybe I need a glass of champagne to improve my mood. Before Edward could stop her, Olivia grabbed a glass from a passing waiter and took a big sip. He rubbed his temples. This is going to end badly, Olivia smiled. Depends on your definition of bad. The night went on with Edward trying to avoid unnecessary conversations, while Olivia did the opposite, chatting with everyone she met. But then, while distracted talking to one of the businessmen, Olivia accidentally stepped on the hem of her dress and tripped. Before she could fall, Edward grabbed her firmly by the waist. "I knew this was going to happen," he murmured. She blinked, surprised to be just a few inches from his face. "Good reflexes, boss. You're a disaster. I prefer the word spontaneous." They stood there for a moment, longer than necessary. Olivia felt her heart race a little, but soon Edward let her go and cleared his throat. "Pull yourself together." She adjusted her dress and smiled. "I'll admit that was a soap opera moment. Don't get carried away." The two of them went back into the hall and continued with the night, but Edward was uneasy. He never felt comfortable at events like this, but this time it was different. This time, he couldn't take his eyes off Olivia, and that was a problem. A big problem, and he had no idea what to do about it. The day after the gala, Olivia woke up with a strange feeling. It wasn't tiredness, nor regret for the champagne glasses she had drunk. It was something different, something she didn't want to name. As she walked to Edward's office, she realized she was nervous. She? Nervous? That had to be a joke. She took a deep breath and walked in. Edward was behind his desk, as always, impeccably dressed and focused on a stack of papers. But when he looked up and saw her, something passed through his gaze. It was subtle, but it was there. "Good morning, boss," she said, trying to keep a casual tone. "You're late," he replied, emotionless. She rolled her eyes and plopped into the chair in front of him. "By 1 minute, time is money," she huffed. "Right, Mr. Count every second of life." He closed the folder and crossed his fingers on the desk. "How are you after the gala?" She blinked. "Are you asking if I'm okay?" "Don't get used to it." She smiled. "Well, aside from almost falling in the middle of the hall and everyone seeing it, I'm great." He studied her face for a moment, before responding, "You did a good job." Her eyes widened. "Wait, was that a compliment?" "It was an observation." "I'll take it as a compliment." He just shook his head. There was a moment of silence between them, but it wasn't uncomfortable. On the contrary, it was strange and natural at the same time. Then the office door opened, and a man in a suit rushed in. "Mr. Fisher, we have a problem." Edward looked at him with boredom. "What kind of problem?" "The investor we met yesterday wants to renegotiate the terms." Edward sighed and stood up. "Great, I'll take care of it." He looked at Olivia. "You're coming with me." Her eyes widened. "Why?" "Because I said so." She huffed but stood up and followed him. The meeting was long and tiring. The investor tried to impose new conditions, but Edward, with his usual coldness, didn't give in at all. Olivia watched it all in silence, impressed. After more than an hour, Edward wrapped up the negotiation without losing a single cent. When they left the meeting room, Olivia whistled. "You really don't have a heart." He looked at her. "Thanks. That wasn't a compliment." He ignored her and kept walking. "Let's have lunch." "Together?" "Yes." "Is this a date?" He stopped walking and looked at her with boredom. "If you keep talking, I'll cancel." She laughed. "Okay, boss. No more jokes." They both left the building and went to a quieter restaurant. Sitting at the table, Olivia noticed something odd. Edward was relaxed, even took off his tie. This was a rare event. "So," she began, "you really never managed to touch any woman without having an allergic reaction?" He stared at his wine glass for a moment before answering. "No, you were the only one." "Does that mean I'm special? Don't get too excited." She smiled. "But have you ever thought that maybe this means something?" He met her gaze. "Like what?" She shrugged. "I don't know. Maybe your body is trying to tell you something." He raised an eyebrow. "Now you're a psychology expert?" She laughed. "I'm just saying, maybe your allergy isn't exactly physical." Edward didn't respond right away, but that thought kept ringing in his mind. The lunch went surprisingly smoothly. They talked, laughed at some silly things, and for the first time, Edward wasn't analyzing every second like it was a business transaction. When they returned to the office, Olivia felt like something was changing, and Edward knew it too. That night, while he was in his apartment bent over some reports, he couldn't get one scene out of his head the way. Olivia laughed at lunch, the way she held the glass without realizing she was leaving fingerprints on it, the look in her eyes when she teased him. He sighed and rubbed his temples. This was a problem, a big problem. He shouldn't be thinking about her this way, but it was too late. He was already involved. and there was no turning back. The days that followed were a mess for Edward Fisher. He, a man who always had control over everything, now found himself lost in his own feelings. Every time he looked at Olivia, every time he heard her laughter echoing through the halls, something inside him twisted, and he hated that. Not because it was bad, but because it was unknown. He never had to deal with such intense emotions, never allowed himself to feel something so strong. But now, here he was, a billionaire completely off track, lost in the one thing he couldn't control, his own heart. Olivia, on the other hand, tried to hide what she was feeling. She had always been easygoing, always taking life lightly, but somehow Edward had messed everything up. She found herself thinking about him every second, noticing small details like how he furrowed his brow when he was concentrating, how his voice sounded softer when he spoke to her. She was in love, but she was afraid to admit it. That night, Edward was on the balcony of his office. The city stretched out before him, lights flashing on the horizon. He held a glass of whiskey in his hand but hadn't even taken a sip. His mind was far away, lost in thoughts he couldn't organize. And that's when he heard footsteps behind him. "Are you running away from work now?" Olivia joked, leaning against the railing beside him. He let out a sigh. "I needed some time to think." She raised an eyebrow. "This doesn't suit you. You're the guy who always knows what to do." Edward looked at her, and for a moment, he was at a loss for words. The wind was tousling her loose hair, and the city lights were shining on her face in a way that made him catch his breath. "What if this time I don't know?" he murmured. She furrowed her brow. "What do you mean?" He closed his eyes for a second before letting out a long sigh. "I spent my whole life believing that feelings were a weakness, that attachment was something to avoid. But you," he shook his head as if frustrated, "you destroyed all of that." Olivia's heart raced. "Edward," he turned to face her, his expression intense. "I tried to ignore it, tried to push it away, but I can't anymore. You're in every thought I have, in every part of my routine. I don't know how it happened, but it did. I'm completely in love with you." The air between them became heavy. Olivia felt her heart jump out of her chest. She never imagined she'd hear those words come from him, but the truth was, she felt the same way. "I feel the same, Edward," she said, her voice almost a whisper. "I tried to avoid it, tried to act like it wasn't a big deal, but it is. You are." He didn't hesitate. With a firm step, he pulled her close and kissed her. It was an intense kiss, full of everything they had both been holding in for so, fingers through his hair, feeling the urgency and certainty in that moment. When they pulled away, Edward's eyes were still fixed on hers. "I don't want to fight this anymore," she smiled. "Then don't." And he didn't. The following months were the best of both their lives. Now that they were together, everything felt easier, lighter. Edward was still the same demanding and perfectionist billionaire, but with Olivia, he relaxed. He smiled more, made jokes even if he tried to deny it, and most importantly, he no longer avoided his feelings. They began sharing moments that would have been unthinkable before a breakfast together at the office. Late night walks around the city, quiet nights watching movies. Simple moments, but ones that meant everything. Then, one romantic dinner, Edward decided it was time to take the next step. The night was perfect. The restaurant was private, lit only by candles, and there was a secluded table just for them. Olivia thought it was just another regular date, until she noticed that Edward was acting differently. He seemed nervous. "Is everything okay?" she asked, tilting her head. He took a deep breath and took her hand. "Olivia, since you came into my life, everything has changed. I've changed. You've made me see the world in a way I never did before, and for the first time, I know exactly what I want." Her heart raced. So in front of her wide eyes, Edward stood up and pulled a velvet box from his pocket. Olivia put her hands to her mouth. "Will you marry me?" She felt the tears come without warning. "Edward, I want to spend the rest of my life with you," he continued, his voice low and sincere. "I want to argue with you. I want to laugh with you. I want you to keep messing up my life the way only you can. I want all of that because I love you." She let out a laugh through her tears. "You just asked me to marry you saying you want to argue with me?" He smiled. "Yes, because I know it's going to happen anyway." She laughed, emotional, and nodded. "Yes, of course, yes." Edward smiled and slid the ring onto her finger before pulling her into a kiss. The whole restaurant erupted in applause. Months later, on a sunny day, the wedding took place. The venue was a blooming garden, full of lights and elegant decorations, but not overdone just the way Olivia had wanted. When she walked down the aisle, holding a bouquet of lilies, Edward was speechless. She looked stunning, perfect, and for the first time, he felt like everything was exactly where it was meant to be. "You look beautiful," he murmured when she reached him. "You've said that before," she smiled. The official began the ceremony, and everything happened in the blink of an eye. "Edward Fisher, do you take Olivia Montero to be your wife?" He held her hand firmly. "I do." "Olivia Montero, do you take Edward Fisher to be your husband?" She smiled. "Yes." "Then I now pronounce you husband and wife." Edward pulled her into a passionate kiss as the guests applauded. And that's how the billionaire CEO, who spent his whole life avoiding closeness, ended up falling in love, getting married, and discovering that sometimes love can be unexpected, but above all, it can be exactly what was missing for life to finally make sense. What did you think of Edward and Olivia's story? Leave your thoughts in the comments. On a scale of 0 to 10, what would you rate this story?